In a small corner of a bustling city, where lanes were narrow and houses stood shoulder to shoulder, lived a young boy named Ravi. His home was a simple, two-room dwelling with walls that had seen many monsoons. The paint was peeling, but his mother always kept it clean and tidy. She would draw beautiful rangoli patterns at the doorstep every morning, a splash of color in their otherwise gray world. Ravi's father was a factory worker, a man whose hands were rough but whose heart was gentle. He worked long hours for a small wage, but he always returned home with a smile for Ravi and his little sister Priya. Their life was not easy, but it was filled with the simple joys of a loving family. Ravi was a dreamer. While his world was small, his dreams were vast and touched the sky. He wanted to become a government engineer. He saw the broken roads and leaking water pipes in his neighborhood and imagined a day when he could fix them all. He believed that, with a good education, he could build a better life for his family and his community. Every evening, after helping his mother with chores, he would sit under the dim light of a single bulb, his books spread out before him. The world of numbers and equations was his escape, a magical place where anything seemed possible if you just tried hard enough. He was a diligent boy, juggling many responsibilities with a maturity beyond his years. In the morning, before school, he would deliver newspapers to the houses in the wealthier part of the city. He rode his old, rickety bicycle, its bell ringing cheerfully as he went. After school, he would rush to a small tea stall to help the owner wash cups and serve customers. The little money he earned was a precious contribution to the family's needs. He would give it all to his mother, who would accept it with a sad smile, her eyes filled with both pride and a touch of sorrow that her son had to work so hard. Despite his busy schedule, Ravi never neglected his studies. His teachers were fond of him, impressed by his sharp mind and his unyielding desire to learn. They knew of his family's struggles and often gave him extra books and notes. Ravi treasured these books like gold, reading them over and over until the pages were soft and worn. He knew that education was his only weapon, his only bridge to cross the river of poverty that separated him from his dreams. He worked tirelessly, his young shoulders carrying the weight of his duties and the even greater weight of his aspirations for a brighter tomorrow. One evening, Ravi's world turned upside down. His father came home much earlier than usual. His face was pale, and his shoulders were slumped in a way Ravi had never seen before. He did not have his usual smile. The factory where he had worked for 20 years had closed down without warning. Just like that, the family's main source of income was gone. A heavy silence fell upon their small home, a silence so thick it felt like a blanket of despair. Ravi's mother tried to be strong, but he saw the tears she wiped away when she thought no one was looking. The sky, once full of his hopeful dreams, seemed to have fallen upon them. The days that followed were very difficult. Ravi's father looked for a new job every day, from morning till night, but he was no longer young, and jobs were scarce. Ravi had to take on more work. He started selling roasted peanuts near the bus stand in the evenings, his voice joining the chorus of other vendors. His small hands, which should have been holding pens and storybooks, were now stained with charcoal and oil. He studied late into the night, but his mind would often wander. The numbers in his textbooks blurred, replaced by worries about where their next meal would come from and how they would pay the rent. Hope began to feel like a distant memory, a luxury he could no longer afford. Some of his friends, who also lived in the neighborhood, would see him working and shake their heads. "Ravi, why are you wasting your time with books? Look at us. We left school and we are earning. Your dream of becoming an engineer is impossible. People like us can't afford such big dreams." Their words were like small, sharp stones hitting his heart. He tried to ignore them, but a seed of doubt was planted in his mind. Was he being foolish? Was he chasing a mirage in a desert of harsh reality? A feeling of hopelessness started to creep into Ravi's heart. It was a cold, heavy feeling that settled in his chest. He saw the tired lines on his parents' faces and the quiet sadness in his little sister's eyes. He felt a deep sense of guilt and helplessness. He was working as hard as he could, but it felt like he was trying to fill a leaking pot with a tiny spoon. The dream of becoming an engineer now seemed like a cruel joke. He felt lost and alone, adrift in an ocean of problems with no land in sight. The fire of his ambition, which once burned so brightly, was now just a flicker, threatened by the strong winds of despair. One Sunday, feeling overwhelmed by his worries, Ravi walked aimlessly, his feet carrying him away from the noise and chaos of his life. He found himself climbing a small hill on the outskirts of the city. At the top, under the shade of a large banyan tree, sat a monk. The monk was old, with a serene face and kind eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. He was watching a pair of pigeons that were busy building a nest on one of the branches. Ravi sat down at a distance, wanting to be alone with his sorrow. But the monk looked at him and smiled gently, as if he understood everything without a single word being spoken. The monk beckoned him closer. "You seem to be carrying a heavy burden, my child," he said in a soft, calm voice. Ravi, who had been holding back his tears for so long, could not stop them anymore. He poured out his heart to the kind stranger, his family's struggles, his father's job loss, his own fading dreams, and the crushing weight of hopelessness. The monk listened patiently, his gaze never leaving Ravi's face. When Ravi finished, the monk did not offer words of sympathy or easy solutions. Instead, he pointed to the pigeon's nest on the tree. It was a simple structure made of twigs and leaves, woven together with care. "I have a task for you," the monk said, his voice firm but gentle. "For the next 10 days, I want you to come here every afternoon and destroy this nest." Ravi was shocked. Why would this kind-looking monk ask him to do something so cruel? He looked at the pigeons, who were lovingly arranging a small piece of straw. Destroy their home? The thought made him uncomfortable. He wanted to refuse, but there was something in the monk's eyes that made him trust him. It was a strange request, but Ravi was so lost that he was willing to try anything, even if it made no sense. Hesitantly, Ravi agreed. He was filled with a sense of confusion and unease. The monk simply nodded, his face calm and unreadable. "Come back tomorrow," was all he said. Ravi walked back down the hill, his mind in a turmoil. He did not understand the purpose of this strange and destructive task. He felt a pang of guilt for what he was about to do. Yet, a tiny part of him was also curious. The monk was unlike anyone he had ever met. Perhaps there was a hidden meaning, a lesson buried within this cruel act that he could not yet see. He decided to follow the monk's instructions, hoping to find an answer to his own troubles. The next day, with a heavy heart, I climbed the hill again. The monk was already there, meditating. I looked at the completed nest. It was a small but perfect home. I took a long stick and, with my eyes closed, poked at the nest until it fell apart, the carefully collected twigs scattering on the ground. The pigeons fluttered around in panic, their cooing filled with distress. I felt a sharp sting of guilt. I had destroyed something that was built with so much effort. I looked at the monk, who simply watched me without a word. I quickly left, unable to bear the sight of the homeless birds. I returned the next day, and the day after that, and for a whole week. Each day, I was met with the same sight. The pigeons had started rebuilding their nest in the very same spot. Every morning, they would tirelessly search for new twigs, leaves, and bits of string. And every afternoon, I would arrive with my stick and destroy their hard work. The task became a painful routine. I felt like a villain in a story, bringing destruction day after day. But with each passing day, my anger and frustration were slowly replaced by a growing sense of wonder and admiration for the two small birds. I observed them closely. They never seemed to give up. As soon as their home was destroyed, they would immediately start again, as if the failure of the previous day did not matter. They did not cry or complain. They just got to work. Their determination was silent, steady, and absolute. I started to see a reflection of my own struggle in their daily toil. I, too, was trying to build a future, a safe nest for my family. while the world seemed intent on knocking it down. Yet these birds, with their tiny bodies and simple minds, possessed a resilience that I felt I was losing. On the 10th and final day, I climbed the hill with the stick in my hand. I stood before the tree and looked at the nest. It was almost complete again, a testament to 9 days of relentless effort. The female pigeon was sitting inside, her body settled comfortably. She looked at me with her small, beady eyes, but she did not fly away. It was as if she was daring me to destroy her home one more time. I raised the stick, but my arm felt heavy. I could not do it. I looked at the bird's unwavering spirit and saw not weakness, but an incredible, unbreakable strength. I dropped the stick and sat down, my eyes filled with tears of shame and awe. The monk, who had been watching from a distance, walked over and sat beside me. He placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Why did you stop?" he asked softly. I, my voice choked with emotion, replied, "I couldn't do it anymore. Every day I destroyed their home, and every day they rebuilt it. They never gave up. Today I saw their hope, and I couldn't bring myself to break it." I looked at the nest, a symbol of pure, unyielding persistence. I finally understood that the monk's task was not about cruelty, but about teaching me a profound lesson that no book could ever provide. The monk smiled, a warm and knowing smile that reached his eyes. "The lesson is now complete, my child," he said. "I did not ask you to destroy the nest to be cruel. I wanted you to see the nature of true strength. Strength is not about never falling. It is not about winning every battle. True strength lies in your ability to rise again every single time you fall. It is in the courage to rebuild your nest, your dreams, your life, even when everything seems to have been destroyed. These small birds have a spirit that many humans lack. They have faith that their efforts will eventually create a home." The monk's words washed over me like a gentle rain, cleansing my heart of the dust of despair and hopelessness. I looked at my own life from this new perspective. I had faced failure and disappointment. My father had lost his job. My friends had discouraged me, but I was still standing. I was still working, still studying, still trying. I had been so focused on the repeated destruction that I had failed to see the power in my own repeated efforts to rebuild. The monk had not given me a magical solution, but something far more valuable, a change in how I saw my own struggles. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, I walked down the hill. I felt tired, my body aching from long hours of work and study, but my heart felt lighter than it had in months. The heavy weight of despair had been lifted, replaced by a quiet, steady flame of hope. I knew the path ahead was still long and filled with challenges. My family's problems would not disappear overnight, but now I had the faith of the pigeon. I knew that every small effort, every late night of studying, every coin earned, was like a single twig. One by one, I would gather them, and no matter how many times my nest was broken, I would rebuild it. My dream was not impossible. It was just waiting to be built, one day at a time.